They're good prospects for practically all types of goods and services. All too often, though, they're overlooked prospects. Since 1940, in San Francisco alone, the Negro market has increased by 89%. Here are millions of customers for what you have to sell. Customers with $15 billion to spend.
That's right.
Someone once said to me that the people in general cannot bear very much reality. He meant by this that they prefer fantasy to a truthful recreation of their experience. People have quite enough reality to bear by simply getting through their lives, raising their children, dealing with the eternal conundrums of birth, taxes, and death.
Negroes are continuously making progress here in this country. The progress in many areas not as fast as it should be, but they are making progress, and we will continue to make progress.
Saturday with
There's no
my entire
reason
yard
that
sale.
in
This is awesome.
the near and the foreseeable future that a Negro could also be president of the United States.
I remember, for example, when the ex-attorney general, Mr. Robert Kennedy, said that it was conceivable that in 40 years in America we might have a Negro president. And that sounded like a very emancipated statement, I suppose, to white people. They were not in Harlem when this statement was first heard. They did not hear, and possibly will never hear, the laughter and the bitterness and the scorn with which the statement was greeted. From the point of view of the man in the Harlem barbershop, Bobby Kennedy only got here yesterday. And now he's already on his way to the presidency. We've been here for 400 years, and now he tells us that maybe in 40 years, if you're good, we may let you become president.
It was a dream, just a dream I had on my mind. It was a dream, just a dream I had on my mind. And when I woke up, baby, not a thing could I find. I dreamed I went out with an angel and had a good time.
Trent, can you hear me though?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, just fine. Great. And it's great seeing you do a yard sale. It's always good, you know, someone's trash is someone's treasure.
Right.
So you've been on Franklin for a while or no?
That from a very literal point
You've been on Franklin for a while or no?
the harbors and the ports
8 years.
and the railroads
That's a while.
of the
And
country.
we bought it as a rent-to-own, and we
The
sold the
economy,
house, and I'm buying a catamaran
especially
sailing around the world.
of the southern states could not conceivably be
They're
what
still
it has
here in
become
Columbus for 9 months,
if
but
they
after
had
9
not
months
had,
we'll be
and
heading
do
out.
not still have indeed, and
What-
for so
what
long,
waterway?
for many generations, cheap labor.
There's like no way to select the audio, so it's
Here,
hard
just
to
a
hear you.
second. Just a second. I'll turn this off for a second. Just a second. I've been playing with what you call it.
I'm trying to put this so the sun's not in there.
I've been playing with Zoom and Canopy. You know, the Canopy has got some free movies, and I'm Not Your Negro. Everybody was talking about, you know, the what was that big Birth of a Nation or the Slave one?
Yeah, Birth of the Nation.
They were all
was
talking
the
about that as being the
horrible
great
one.
movie, but this one I think is so much more powerful. It's based on Alec Baldwin's work.
Right.
I mean, this movie I think is much more powerful, and you can break it down and make it very educational for the children too.
I listened to that entire piece. I watched it on YouTube 2 days ago. I just took some time and said, I got to sit down, and I needed to absorb this. I needed a lot of positive, peaceful-minded stuff, because man, did you see the piece by Dave Chappelle
No, I haven't
Do
been
it.
watching much TV. Yeah.
Find it on YouTube. It's free. It's titled 826 or 4. Sorry, I can't remember.
846. Yeah, 846.
846. Look up 846. Spend the time. It's deep and it's meaningful and it's a voice I needed to hear. And man, he didn't, like an artisan, he weaves it all together and brings meaning. It's
yeah.
something to
He's
witness.
a good Ohio boy. He's a good Ohio boy.
Yeah, and he shot it in Beaver Creek.
Oh, good. His home. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he said he was locked up at his house during this whatever we're doing.
Yeah. So it was something to watch, and I
did see Suzanne and Bob walking on Brighton Road just the other day. So they were out a little bit. She said she doesn't get out that much, but I saw them out that day.
I see Suzanne.
Oh no, we go out every day and walk for at least an hour. We just don't hang out with lots of.
I don't hear Suzanne.
Okay, I got you. I hear you.
You don't hear Suzanne, Charlie? We can hear you, and your camera is working better.
Here.
Yeah.
We hear you. I guess he can't hear us.
He's back. Now he's back. Now he's off. Now he's back.
Yeah, his Moto G7 power. It's
whatever
not,
that is. What is Moto? Is that a phone or is that a?
Yeah, it's a
device. Yeah.
Motorola.
Okay. Yeah, I knew kids talk about Moto all the time, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
They talk
Suzanne,
about
I love the yeah.
flag.
This is the second Saturday Salon Cyber that works. We hear you, so you
no
gotta
audio.
check your speakers.
No audio.
Yeah, you do.
Let's see, people.
Maybe he doesn't have his speaker working.
Have no audio.
Okay, so in about 4 minutes, I'm going to start playing that
No audio.
on a loop.
Sounds good. So
This is that part where you mute
Suzanne,
somebody.
I got a little bit of piece from today's actions, if you wanted to show that.
Yeah, well, we have a certain order we're going to go in, so I'll let you know when it's time to do that.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Sharing the screen, it's okay. It's 2 poems, one by a 16-year-old girl.
How long is it?
Not long. I mean, all together it'd be 3 minutes, 4 minutes probably.
We have a speaker that has to speak before 8.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure we get her in there too.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got something.
All right.
I hear
Just
something.
because it sat on the basement floor for too long.
This is, I'll show you. I got the screen sharing. I can show you a little bit real quick what I was talking about. And see if it takes. But you said you're going to start in what, 2 minutes?
In about 4 or 5 till, I'm going to start playing a loop of a PowerPoint.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
This is what we got right here.
You bought that tile thing. So
Okay,
I
I'm with you guys.
In your column.
Good show. So I made $64.
You see that?
55,
Yeah, I see it.
56, 57.
This is stuff that happened this morning.
57 so far.
Cool.
All right, good. Thank you.
They went all the way down the police, and there's.
And then you have video maybe of a girl
Yeah,
giving a speech.
yeah, this
I mean
is-
a poem.
Yeah, this young woman will do a poem, and then that might be the poem time. That's the poem time. This is Quasi, who works with Morgan. He's got another poem, which is about a minute, and then she's speaking. You know who that is, Morgan, right? So I think it'd be good to give her, because she's pretty strong in this. This speech is sort of a fun speech to hear. And then you shed. These are all about 30 seconds.
And we are gathered here today to stand in solidarity with and to express love for our black Sabbath.
Yes.
God says in the Holy Quran.
Okay, looks like it works just fine, huh?
Yeah, I think it's okay if you're all right.
Yep.
Just tell me when I need to pop it up, and I think I can do it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Everybody's good so far today? I don't have video. I'm using my computer, and it doesn't have a camera.
We got Tom Over coming in.
Yeah, I reminded him today. I saw him this morning. I reminded him that it was today. He said, oh, yeah. Good.
So I'm going to have people just be listening to and seeing some art with some music at the beginning. So I'm going to mute everybody in a minute.
Yep, sounds good.
Start playing that.
That's what I was showing. I'm Not Your Negro, some of that stuff too. I was showing earlier.
And then Bob will join us here in a minute. He's on his way. Okay, here we go. I guess I have to share my screen first.
And I rise like the day, I rise up.
What happened? Just all of a sudden stopped. Let me try it again. I don't know what happened. I lost my audio. Whoops. Why does the sound stop?
I think it was WAU, like W-A-U.
Did you hit those buttons that shared computer sound? I know you did
Yeah,
that.
it was playing.
Yeah.
We heard it and then it stopped.
And I do it 1,000 times again. And I rise up, I like the waves, I rise up, in spite of the ache, I rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. When the silence is quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Ooh, mountains, bring it to its feet. Mountains, and I rise like the day, I rise unafraid, I rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. That we have each other.
As soon as I let people in, it stops. Damn it. Oh, screw it. I can't let people in while it's playing for some reason. I don't know how to just make it start playing again. Wait, it says pod. Tom Nilsson.
Bob, Suzanne, how you doing?
Are you letting everybody in, Suzanne?
The problem is if I do, I can't both play the video and let people in. So I can only do one or the other.
Oh.
Can you let people in?
No, because only the host can.
And I rise like the day. I rise unafraid. I rise up.
See it this.
Yep, I don't have the means to let anybody in.
Oh, that's weird.
But I keep hearing ring. So, okay, we're up to 12 people.
I had to, the only way this could play is if I...
Oops.
And I do it 1,000 times again.
All right.
And I rise
so I'm the youngest person in the room, but I still don't know who this is.
I rise up, in spite of the ache, I rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. When the silence is quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. I'm dead, bring it to its feet.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hello. Well, here we are at the June 2nd Saturday Salon. I see Stephen Connie, Tim Chavez. Is that Charles Traylor? Wow, haven't seen you for a while. And Margaret and Stuart Wright. Got a lot of old friends here, Bob Ream and Phil Fry. Wow, great to see you. Like Jamie's coming in. So in honor of Pride Month, we got our flag here. We don't want to just cut Bob off the neck. And we mainly have one subject of conversation today based on racism and all its horrible consequences. But we do have hope. We are rising up, as people are doing down at the State House as we speak. And just to put a little context, as we've been doing at every salon, now that it's the Free Press's 50th anniversary, we go over a little bit of Free Press history and tell people about how the Free Press has covered things over the years at the beginning of each salon. So here we go, a bit of another PowerPoint here that we're going to click through to show you some of the past, and Bob's going to talk a little bit.
Okay, many of you know the Free Press history coming from the radical college underground news services. And a couple things I always need to remind ourselves of. The Free Press was for the legalization of drugs, particularly marijuana, since its inception in 1970. So to some extent, we've won that cultural battle. We also were anti-police violence. And again, if you look at the back pages of the Free Press, we're trying to put together a cautionable book. But some of you might also remember the Free used to out undercover police in a section called Pig Picks. So when we were able to verify who an undercover cop was, we would put their picture in the Free Press to identify the community that it was an undercover police officer. And again, as you look at some of the free press, I'm not real sure what's going on now.
I have to let people in.
Oh, okay. Should I start on?
No, they don't see the book.
Oh, okay. So I thought you were looking at the loop. But again, the free press covered a tremendous amount of police violence and police brutality during the 1990s. And we'll talk a little about that tonight. So you're seeing some of the early free press papers there from the 70s on the police beating. The police had what was called early on the bastard offense when they were accused of being racist. They argued that they treated Appalachians on the south and west side equally as bad, and that they also beat the hell out of college students in the OSU area. So that was one of their defenses over the years, is they indiscriminately a variety of citizens. Of course, later when it came to shootings, that was always disproportionately Black people. Okay, so you can see again the famous undercover cop attack at the State House, which led to the police being sued. And again, so a huge battle over these underground police forces. One of the things, borrowing in part from Michelle Alexander in her new Jim Crow, have argued that there's been 5 Jim Crows over the years. The first chattel slavery, brutalist systems, followed by apartheid and Jim Crow after 1876. And then while that system was beginning to break down after World War II, the international system of Jim Crow, where our CIA went worldwide, killed Patrice Lumumba, killed people of color all over the world. And again, John Stockwell, the assistant to the CIA director, said really there was a third world war which killed 8 million indigenous people throughout the world. So that was happening. And then in the US, of course, is the civil rights movement and the campus college student-based peace movement took off, as well as the Black Power movement. You had the 4th Jim Crow, which was the blatant repression of the Black community, including, of course, the war on drugs, which led to a quick 7-fold increase in prisoners from 1970 to 7, and then that being increased by about 4-fold under Reagan. So this 4th period, and then they got more sophisticated around 2000, 2004 with the Civil Rights Act beginning to wane in the Civil Rights Act. You had a situation where they simply purged Black voters and openly stole the elections. But we still had the brutalizing prison system, racist prison system in place. But remember, the 30 Black Panthers were killed in a period there in the early 70s, Fred Hampton being one of the most famous of that. So with all that in mind, let me briefly go over Columbus aspect. You saw the 70s PowerPoint. In 92, we recall the largest riot, urban riot, and really the largest one since Detroit in '67 in LA. But equally, that was of course the Rodney King brutalization caught on tape with the 13 skull fractures. But here in Columbus, the Columbus police were regularly beating college students. They beat Aletha Wall, a black wrestler at Ohio State, and there actually were large marches in Columbus, including one where the police had to intervene to help save George Herbert Walker Bush, who was speaking downtown at one of the hotels. Also 93, some of you may recall Rashad Grayson, a 13-year-old who had foam nunchucks. A cop came by, put him on his own property, attempted to arrest him. His mom came out, they maced her. 30 police officers showed up at the scene, beat the family with helicopters, and then they forgot.
With helicopters.
They showed up with helicopters, beat pretty much the whole family, forgot to arrest Rashad, who was just standing there doing nothing but practicing martial arts with these foam nunchucks. So Jim McNamara was the attorney. He asked the police officer if he ever had foam nunchucks when he was little, and he said, "Of course I did." But the difference was this was a 13-year-old black kid with foam nunchucks as opposed to a white kid from the suburb. Huge rising up in Columbus, 96 to 98 with Cop Watch. Some of you I know are familiar with that. And one of the things, the huge police attacks always occur on the traditional African-American fraternity homecoming weekend, including armored vehicles. Of rubber bullets, Cop Watch decided to get video cameras and, of course, record the police in what they actually did, as opposed to the standard perjury and lies they submitted regularly. One of my favorite, they got in trouble and had to pay $28,000 watch. They claimed a crazed horde of 300 students and cop watchers trapped them against the building. The video, two Cop Watch people who the police walk up to and slapped across the face, stole their camera. One guy leaned into the camera, claimed he was assaulted, so beat the student up. But the best part, there was one extra Cop Watch person hiding in the bushes who was able to run away. So the standard lie of a life-threatening horde was actually rebutted by the video. So again, that was 1998, following a 96 Cop Watch. Also, you recall 1998, great praise should go to James Moss, Police Officers for Equal Rights. Remember, the white police officers shot a bullet through his office window, pulled a gun on him while he was fixing a rental property he owned, and pretty much harassed him. He brought in the Justice Department under Bill Land Lee and got a consent decree that required the police, although they didn't follow it, to always have the body cams on. Also in 1998, one of the reasons they came in, there was over nearly $1 million in 95 in police payouts for brutality, 600,000 in 98. And in the 10th Circuit Court said that the Columbus police had a, quote, custom of abuse, that abusing citizens and particularly African Americans was part of their culture. There was also a period where there were two black shot, one being Dante Miller. Well, they were both shot in the back while running away. And in both cases, a gun was found 50 to 100 feet away that no eyewitnesses had seen on the victims who were shot in the back. So again, there's people that were active against police brutality, and of course, a variety of stories in the newspaper, the Free Press. Again, that's when City Council was literally shut down for the first time in recorded memory. over the question of police violence. Here's a timely one. The world's leading slaver, the founder of the Western slave trade. And this statue should come down as soon as possible. And he should admit to being a racist, genocidal murderer and founder of the Western slave trade. And you may see on that last one, here's one you may recall where they brutalized disabled people at Senator Portman's office and confiscated mobile units, including a trike, for a person who was dependent on it. It was very difficult to get. They put them in the lockup, property lockup, so they couldn't use their wheelchairs and other instruments like bikes. There, of course, Timothy Davis, brutalized by the police. I thought it was a skinhead gang. Turned out to be that special jump out boy unit. So again, another brutal beating of a black man who was there again, a variety of shooting of police, again among black people all over the state. Also a big debate. Columbus is number one. Columbus Dispatch has refuted it. That was taken out of the top 10, out of the top 10 leading cities in America. And when that originally was written, there were 24 people who had been shot from 2013 to 2016. 20 of the 24 had been black. So tremendous disproportional shooting of African Americans. And of course, we all know, go down to the State House and you can see the various white boys with their assault rifles openly carrying. But if you're Henry Green, you end up dead. If you're Christopher Radden recently, even though it's a replica, not a real gun, you'll be charged with a felony. So, people will be shot and killed, not because of their the threat they're making to the community, but because of the color of their skin. And here, of course, the Black Pride 4, where the police ignored the order of the day, ignored the orders, and refused to allow them a few seconds to be silent over the brutalization of the transgender community. So here, of course, many of you had looked at the Vice Squad and the renegade police that were out of control and victimizing women on the west side of the city. Okay, leaked anonymous letters. So again, charges within the police department itself from black officers that there's a culture of racism that is blatant and is tolerated. Okay, so that's just some of the free press coverage.
So anybody have any comments or
questions?
I gotta unmute.
Stuff we've missed.
I'm not sure how to unmute everybody.
Hey, Dr. Bob, can you talk a little bit about that Christopher Radden case and what happened? I know it was over here in Driving Park on Livingston and Lockbourne, and we were out there protesting, but I never got the full story.
Well, he's been charged with a felony in a failure to comply and 2 misdemeanors. I can't go in too much detail because I'm one of the people representing him.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, okay.
Say what happened.
But again, if you were there, you can explain what happened. I've seen the video. I mean, again, it was the police. He had a sign, his First Amendment right, saying "fuck the police." he had a replica gun that wasn't real and properly marked. And to me, from my perspective, he looks like he was singled out and assaulted by the police, but he's a fairly large man and didn't go quite the way the police officer wanted.
Understood.
And then after being brutalized by the police, he briefly defended himself. But again, I think there needs to be a campaign to drop the charges against Christopher Radden. People need to write Ginther. People need to write Shannon Hardin. People need to write Kevin Boyce. And of course, Representative Beatty, and demand the charges be dropped. You know, it was clearly a racist attack from somebody representing their First Amendment rights. Anyone who was there want to speak?
Okay, Mark Stansberry has some footage from a rally just happened today downtown. Do you want to share that, Mark? I don't know if I need to do something to help you share that.
Yeah, I can do it. If you let me see. Yeah, I can do it, I think. Oh, here. Okay. All right. Can people see yet? Can people see?
Yes.
I can see.
Okay. And you can hear me. Okay, good. This is from today. You know, I've been down at the actions or out at the actions since actually, you know, Memorial Day is when Mr. Floyd was killed, murdered out on the street. Word started spreading out that it had happened on Tuesday. So we had an action on Tuesday at the State House, and that word had come to us. So we started talking about it then. But then the big action at Livingston, where Mr. Redden was picked up. But these are this is a different community that is now starting to join in, and it's today, this started at the City Hall. I'm going to run you through. It'll take maybe 6-7 minutes. We started at City Hall, went to State House, and then to the police department headquarters. And it was a lot of people, but you know, not gigantic. It was very good. But this is in the morning. It was rainy, remember, right? Everybody, it was rainy. Let me get this up the way so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so, you know, people standing around. It was a good group. This is folks, if you know CARE Ohio, it was organized by CARE Ohio, and it was to show support from the Muslim community of Black Lives Matter. So they went from here up to the State House to join a rally of folks that were going to march to the police department headquarters. So this is in the morning. Let's see, what else? Yeah, it's the gathering. We're getting ready to go. Now we've gone down to the State House. And this was AKA, do you know the sorority? Love the sisters, love them. They're out. Anytime you need service projects, the AKA are there. This is actually the vice principal from South High School. So I know her, and she was speaking in front of this kind of crowd at the State House, gathering to get ready to go to the police department. And this is all today. This is started around 10 o'clock and moved on. Still talking. Different folks talked. I got a lot of pictures of her because I knew her. Sorry. Those are the AKA sisters. They were down and helping out. This Tammy, a lot of folks know Tammy, right? Everybody knows Tammy. And there's another gentleman with the megaphone. I don't know him well. I know his first name because people called him Jordan, but he helped a lot and has been helping a lot. These are some other, on the left side, some sisters they're involved with. It's called a Heartbeat. It's not the abortion thing, but it's Heartbeat, about prisoner rights and some other agenda out there. So that's that. different communities are starting to stand with Black lives. This is Arab American saying Black Lives Matter with a Palestinian flag in the US down on the State House today. These balls were pretty funny. These were funny, sort of, because, but not funny. Not funny, actually. These were really well done. It was, they had names of people. There were names of people that were killed before 21. So it was like they took their joy from them. So this was names of people that had been killed by the police, and that these were spread out on the State House lawn this morning. People, after a few march, there was an attempt to coup today, and we have to watch out for the coup, right? There's the state, the established folk. Here's the mayor. If you see his a large body right there next to one of the brothers, that's been one of the organizers. I don't know if, can you see my cue? I don't know if you see my cue, but it's right there, sort of to the right. Mayor is there. He was trying to take over the action. He had brought out some, I don't know who they were. I'd never seen them before. They might have been very powerful, wonderful priests and pastors, but I think they're evangelical or other kind. They were trying to do some prayers. People started thinking, no, we got to go. So one of the organizers, you know, the two women right in front with the megaphones, they were like, oh shit, we're starting to get cooed. So we decided to just march. So we just started to march. And everybody, I mean, this is some of the stuff that's already on front of the State House. So we started a march. Down to the police department. So here they come. The folks are here. But see, when we get there, yeah. Okay, so this is a 16-year-old that spoke out, and I got a clip for her. I think, is this it? I don't know. Let's see. Is that it, or is the other one? I think, was that? Can I tell? No, that's not the one. Okay, hang on. She did a great poem. This was the mixture of organizations that came out. It was the Muslim Care Ohio Action. It was a group that wanted to have the protests about police brutality, but it was all meeting at State House and moving down to the headquarters to make their stuff known, which is defund the department. And Bob and other folks can speak about what that might mean, because defund in a lot of people means, you know, abolish, and other folks think it means this and other. And then the main one is invest in community. Yeah, invest, we got to. So here we are. Oh.
I can't go 1 block without seeing a Blue Lives Matter flag while our blue lives use our black men as punching bags. I didn't preach ACAB because it felt like a little much, but seeing our young men and women die in the streets is also a little much. Sure, you can post on your story about how sad this makes you, but 24 hours later, will it still affect you? Probably not. This world, man, it's crazy. Quick question, does your president still think we're lazy? We're not. We're tired, like we said before. We see these headlines and it hurts us to our core, because I'm terrified that one day I'll know the name that sits at the top of the page. That's when this anger will turn into straight rage. So until the cops that kill are in prison and not just fired, we will scream, shout, and fight, because we are sick and tired. I can't go.
Let's go on.
One block.
How we move on? Black. How do you move on?
Without
no, I don't.
A blue line.
Hang on. Okay, wait up. Gotta get out of here, I think. Where is it? Oh, this. I need to get this out of the way. That's what it is. Get out the way. Get out the way. There we go. Sorry. Okay, here's another one.
Hostile environment made of metal bricks and stone, where they try to teach me everything except when I need to fix my problems at home. And when I go home, I return to a bunch of problems that got roots that go way over my head, so the solution remains unknown. And moms ain't trying to hear that. They schools ain't teaching me what I need to be. She ain't trying to hear that shit. She just get to swinging on me. And Chase.
Oh, just a second.
I can't go one block without seeing a Blue Lives Matter flag. Well, I can't go one block without seeing.
Hostile environment made of metal bricks and stone where they try to teach me everything except what I need to fix my problems at home. And when I go home, I return to a bunch of problems that got roots that go way over my head, so the solution remains unknown. And moms ain't trying to hear that. They schools ain't teaching me what I need to be. She ain't trying to hear that, so she just get to swinging on me and chase me right back out in the streets. And in the streets, they got even bigger a-holes than the ones in those buildings. And they ride around all day, and I swear they keep fucking with me. But what they don't seem to see is me giving an E for effort, but that letter don't seem to count because they said I would never amount to anything. So I went from A's and B's in my report card to F's for felonies for slinging D in the courtyard. So now here I am behind these jail walls trying to look hard in front of a bunch of people who know exactly what hard look like. And I'm the only one of us that can't see my face. Well, I guess it's gonna be a long day. So I must have the only thing I can think to say. What the fuck y'all looking at? Hostile environment made a metal.
Some other pictures of people that were there, young people. I got to know these guys that they were right behind me, and I was, oh man, you can't see, so I let him get ahead front. And then, yeah. So this is Morgan Harper, who we all know, I hope. Here's a speech from her.
We've seen reforms happen in other places.
She talks about a program on public safety.
But we are in a historic global moment, and we can shoot for the stars. We don't need to settle. We don't need to just talk about a civilian review board that's appointed by the same people that will pick the same people that we see all the time on the local news and town halls that talk to us and tell us what to think. We can demand what we actually want. And what we want is honesty. So when we have a mayor who comes out and says that he now cares about change and reform, but was part of a group of people that raised millions of dollars to make sure that people would not hear about our campaign, including a platform on public safety, transforming the way we approach protecting ourselves and our communities and ensuring safety, when we had people, including the mayor, raise millions of dollars to make sure that people wouldn't even know that they necessarily have a choice, that this platform exists, that we can be thinking differently about public safety, then we really have to question that if it took an unprecedented moment of street-level organizing for Columbus, Ohio, to feel some urgency, if it took this nation waking up to injustice that has been 400 years in continuation to finally feel some urgency, and if it took seeing protests happening in places that have never even heard of Columbus, Ohio, for you to care about people dying in Columbus, Ohio, then I cannot take this seriously. Then I will not be voting for you, and I'm really wondering why you're here at all. We've seen reforms happen in other places. They haven't worked. It's not to say it's not helpful to have them. But we are in a historic, global moment, and we can...
Okay, Mark, our next... So can we interrupt your PowerPoint now for our speaker?
To stand in solidarity with and to express love for...
Thank you very much for that. And we have Jorge Anthony here. I'm trying to get you unmuted, and I'm not having here.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So Jorge was going to tell his story about how when he was protesting over the past 2 weeks. Do we have your face? Do we have any audio?
Me?
Any video?
Are you talking of like from last week?
No, just a view of your face right now.
Oh, can you see me?
No. If you hover over your bottom left-hand corner, you might see a little camera that is got a line through it, and if you click on it, then we'll be able to see you. I believe.
I see him.
You see him?
Now I do, yeah.
We did not see
He
him.
goes off and off. Jorge Antonia. Yep.
Yes.
But he should be back.
Can you see me, Suzanne?
Up as a little tiny thing in the corner. I thought you would fill on the screen, but
I see several people shaking their heads, yes, that they see him.
Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might have
Oh,
to-
there he is.
you go.
Okay.
There he goes.
Okay. Go ahead,
So
Suzanne.
share with us some of the things that happened to you that you told us about.
Yeah, so for just a little bit of background. I've been doing some of the abolitionist work here in Columbus for about a year with the CFC on and off, Columbus Freedom Coalition. These protests were originally everybody knows what they're about, like anti-police brutality. We were there last week, and I was helping organize last Thursday when the police were still heavily militarized, although now their tactics have changed. But we were fighting for the streets right around High, Broad, and Front all afternoon, just taking them. It was pretty mild, with the exception of the police antagonizing everyone. But there was a man that was, they came through at around, I would say 8 or 9. And they lined up in just a front, and they came with the LRAD behind them and were targeting people. And they had maced a man in the face. And I went to go check on him to see if he was okay. And I got maced once in the back of the head. And I was like, can you stop? Can I make sure this guy can breathe? Because he didn't look like he could breathe. And I was maced again on my left side of my face. And then as they were flushing, as I was kind of still looking back to watch this guy, because the first one hurt, I was able to walk it off a little bit. And then they got me again in both eyes. And I actually was getting I had to move forward a little bit and get my eyes rinsed. And as I was getting my eyes rinsed, they came, they must have run up on us. And the third time I was maced directly in both eyes. And the mace that I was maced with had 5.2 million Scoville units of heat through a chemical. I believe, I might be mispronouncing it or missaying it, but I think it's called capricium, which is it's in peppers. It's designed to make them really hot. And to put it in perspective, I think a ghost chili pepper has 1 or 2 million Scoville units of heat. So this was 5. The pain felt like your face was poured with gasoline and somebody lit your face on fire. And I want to emphasize again, it wasn't the first 2 times that were that bad. It was bad, but it was the third time really that I think was just very painful. I spent an hour and a half in the shower, just scrubbing my face and trying to get it off. I had chemical burns on my right eye, that over the next couple of days had to be peeled off. They just peeled off. The LRAD damaged my hearing to where even just just with ambient noise, my ears are still ringing. The LRAD is way above the amount of audio necessary to make eardrums bleed. It can make you, part of my language, but it can make you shit and piss yourself. And it's not the first time that they've been like this either. This is really just a systemic problem with the state and CPD. Last year I was beaten with a bicycle by some officers. Yeah, it's been pretty violent, and that continued. The next day they fired tear gas at us, and we were trying to hit them back or throw the tear gas back, and I got shot 3 times in the back of my leg, upper back side of my leg, basically my butt. I was shot 3 times in my butt, and they flashbangs. I mean, it really was like a war last week. But that was kind of, those are my experiences. It's been more mild now, but it's more psychological now than it was last week. But yeah, they've changed their tactics a little bit.
What do you mean by psychological?
So there was a group that came up that really had no known affiliation with any of the, because the people that have been leading the work are like predominantly abolitionist groups of the last year, like Columbus Freedom Coalition, Be Quick, and PJP to some extent, although they weren't as active in the work with Julius and Masonique, which was like one of the big things that we had worked on. But these unknown activists came in. They had really nice sound systems, and the next day, like after all this had happened, like they were taking selfies with the police, like handshaking the police, like, and which like to me was like really a slap in the face to all the work that we had done as like abolitionists and as like, you know, the community of activists that have put themselves and their freedom and their bodies on the line to advance this cause. So it's just like, it was really disrespectful, I think, for them to kind of take up the space like that and like use it to like some sort of whitewashed message, like, you know, like this, like love is this notion can like stop our oppressor or stop the system from like violently beating us, which is not the case, because later on that night they came and maced us on I think it was Hudson and Lane, or it was up, we marched down to Hudson or Lane. It was on Lane, excuse me. It was on Lane, and they maced us later on that night. That same night that they were like, you know, we're actually your friends. We're here to try to keep you safe. And yeah, this group, they had no known connection to any activist. They weren't really like transparent about, they met with the police and the mayor like privately. And they like are fighting for like reforms, which are not even close to what we've been asking for the past year. Like we've been pretty clear about what we've been asking for. We've been asking for like Quinlan to step down. We've been asking them to start bringing their killer cops forward. We've been asking like the police union to like stop defending killer cops. And really, like as an abolitionist group, like the core of it, I don't want to like, those are symbolic. Those things are symbolic. Getting Richards to resign and firing Quinlan is symbolic of what the actual goals are, which is abolition, which is like actually completely like defunding and transitioning away from criminal justice and into restorative justice as a means to help and sort of alleviate the social control that capitalism has on people.
Thank you very much, Jorge, for that account. I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions for him. We have another young woman who's here to present as well, and maybe she can shed a little bit more light on her perspective too of what she's been through with these protests. Julia?
Yeah. Yeah, hi, I'm Julia. I'm one of the organizers helping with CPD out of CCS, which, if you don't know what that is a campaign to remove all the armed police officers, all the police officers, they're all armed, I guess, from Columbus City schools. So our district is 55,000 students. It is 70% minority students, and a majority of the students are Black. And so obviously there shouldn't be police officers in any schools, but in CCS, Columbus City schools, it's particularly pressing. And so given that, a group of alumni decided to start organizing to get them out immediately. And so we have 3 demands. One is that they are removed immediately. We have 19 officers, 1 in each high school. But many of our high schools are also connected to middle schools and elementary schools, which means children as young as like 5 are surveilled and traumatized by these officers. And then our other demands are that they don't show up to any like CCS events at all. So no community dialogue. They're not providing security at any games. Like the connection is completely severed. And then that the district like come up with an even larger plan in consultation with students about how to affirm Black lives in their district. And yeah, so this campaign actually kind of started because me and my friends were going to the protests when the police were more definitely being more brutal, like Jorge was talking about. And so we actually were kneeling in the intersection of Broad and High, and we're literally sitting, and the cops started shooting at us. And so we ran across the street, and we were just crouched in a corner. No one was doing anything, and they followed us and shot us more. And so we went into an alley, and we emerged on like a side road where like people were just like standing around trying to recover. And they actually followed us to that road and shot us again. So it was pretty horrible, and traumatizing. And so we got home that night, and my friend who's the leading organizer, Queen Sola Oye, she couldn't be on the call, but we were just brainstorming, like, what can we do? Like, we couldn't go back out because we were recovering from being shot. And so she was the one who just, she like texted us, and she was like, y'all, like, do you want to help me get CPD out of CCS? And we're like, yes, definitely. And so we've just been organizing that coalition. And like Jorge was saying, like, people have been talking about the brutality of the Columbus Police Department, like Black organizers and activists, for years, right? Like, we know that even though these protests are exposing their like utter brutality and racism on an unprecedented scale, it's nothing new. And everyone who's plugged into the organizing community and just regular Black people and marginalized people, they already knew that. And so a really important part of this campaign is emphasizing that, yes, these protests are atrocious. And they're even more reason to get the cops out of our schools, because we have young students who are at these protests who are now going to walk into their schools and see the same people who shot them for literally standing or sitting on the sidewalk in their schools. But also to remind everyone that the behavior of these protests is just part of a larger pattern of brutalizing and spreading racism and violence in our communities in Columbus. And so that's sort of the catalyst behind the campaign. I see someone ask a question here. I'm gonna look at it. So our recommendation is that the money, the question is, are we recommending that the police officers be replaced with someone else? Yeah, so our recommendation is that the money we spend on the police officers, which is astronomical, be transferred instead to funding counselors, nurses, and social workers primarily. And we sort of talk about that in our letter, which talks about how we actually spent, so the school district spends $1.3 million on the police officers. And that's actually only half their salary, and the CPD covers the other half. So together we almost, together they almost spend $3 million on having armed officers in our schools. And something me and Queen Soul like to talk about is that there was one Tuesday when I was in high school, I'm a recent graduate, and I went to the nurse because I got hurt, and it was Tuesday, so that was too bad for me. There was no nurse there. And so the idea that our district is willing to invest in someone every single day of the school year to surveil their students, to criminalize their students, to fuel the school to prison pipeline, but they're not willing to invest in someone to take care of their immediate health, their mental health, their like college support or career support, it's disgusting. It sends a clear message that we're more invested in criminalizing our students than resourcing them and supporting them. And so that's really what the campaign is about, right? Like, what we have 55,000 plus students, and they're some of the most brilliant and incredible students of all time. And we need to send the message that we're interested in supporting them in like really coming into that brilliance instead of criminalizing them and locking them away forever, which is what having the officers does. And just my high school is Columbus Alternative High School, and among the CCS schools, it's still a pretty privileged high school in regards to how the students are treated. But even there, we had no air conditioning. At one choir concert, I had a kid pass out on my right, and then during our next song, we had a kid pass out on our left. And so just the idea that we're going to school without these basic rights that like students and everyone should have, but every single day of my high school career, I had an officer in school. It's disgusting. I see another question. Let me look at it. Yeah, that's a good question. How do we respond to people who talk about school shootings? So we actually have a lot of research on that. And there has never been a single time where there was a school shooting and the resource officer did anything beneficial. No matter how many resource officers were in the school, no matter how experienced that resource officer was, there has never been an example of a time where having a resource officer actually helped the situation. And actually much more if we're worried about having people with guns in our schools, the most effective thing we can do is get the officers out, because they're the most frequent person in our school with a gun terrorizing our students, not a school shooter. And we actually had a situation in Columbus, Ohio in 2017 where a student walked into the school with a gun, and they discharged that gun twice, and a counselor was able to talk to the student and peacefully resolve the situation with no injury to the student or anyone else, or further discharging of the gun without any officer involvement. And so for people who are worried about school shooters, we definitely hear that. And we see that the one time where we had a shooting in a Columbus school right here, and only 3 years ago, that was resolved peacefully, it was with a counselor and not an officer. And actually, when the officers got there, they expressed displeasure at the way the counselor dealt with the situation, even though his dealing with the situation and with like peace and like the best way it could follow after the student had already discharged the gun twice. And another thing we like to talk about is we did have a counselor in my high school, and her impact was indescribable. I mean, it was huge. I can't imagine how many situations Ms. Higgins diffused before we even got to the point of bringing violence into the school, just because she was actually there caring for the students. And so not only can counselors interfere and de-escalate when we reach that peak violence, but they also de-escalate so many situations before they even get there, which saves not only the other students and staff, but also the student themselves who might bring that violence into the school and then face consequences. So yeah, that's pretty much what our campaign is right now. We're always looking for more people to sign on to our letter, and we're also looking for student stories from throughout the district. So if anyone has a relationship with any students in the district or recent alumni who have their own story about CPD, CCS, I'll send that link in the chat. But we're looking for people to share their stories at the board meeting on Tuesday, because we're currently trying to get 4 board members to vote yes on terminating that contract. And I'll send our social media to the chat as well. But yeah, so if you know any students, please send out that link. They can share anonymously or they can share it publicly. But yeah, that's what CPD out of CCS is about. It's really about it's about making an effort to invest in our students instead of criminalize them, which is essential now, and it's been essential, and it's long overdue that the district take action.
Yeah, can you hear me, Julia?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I thought on the radio show you made a very good point you might want to emphasize is we didn't need these cops prior to 1975. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so one statistic we like to cite a lot is in 1975, 1% of all high schools in the entire nation, all schools in the entire nation had police officers, 1%. So 99% of students were going to school with no officer, and they were fine. And we actually didn't have police officers in Columbus City schools specifically until the 1990s. And so much more of a concern to a lot of our, besides school shootings, is just that day-to-day, altercations between students, school fights, those types of things. And so I think it's really important to name, students in 1975 and before 1975 are the same as students now. And we dealt with school fights, we dealt with all of those altercations without officers, and we can do that again. And all the officers do in our schools now is they don't de-escalate those things, they don't deal with those things in a productive way, they just criminalize our students. And so if we're really invested in reducing the amount of conflict, it's essential we get those officers out, because they are a regular producer of conflict and trauma in our schools. And they certainly have very little training or ability to reduce conflict. And it's really in their job description to incite that conflict, especially for Black students.
Somebody wanted to know if you had a petition and where they might find that.
Yeah, we do have a petition you can sign on, and I'll send that in the chat as well.
Oh, if there's more questions, people can unmute their mics and go ahead and speak if you want. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question for Julia.
Yes.
Hi, Julia. It's John Lasker.
Hi.
Julia, I feel like our city needs your leadership. Do you have aspirations for public office?
I certainly have aspirations to improve Columbus. I'm not sure exactly how I'll go about that. And I do want to name, I'm certainly not the lead of this campaign. This campaign is led by a lot of other wonderful alumni and organizers as well. But yeah, I mean, I think what's something else we talk about in the campaign all the time is that we have such gratitude for Columbus City Schools, and in some ways, as my friend Queensel likes to say, it raised us, and it will always have a piece of my heart. I'm so grateful. There's no way if I didn't go to Columbus City Schools. But also, when you love something, you work to improve it. And so I do think going to Columbus City Schools not only gave me a passion for the city and its students that I wouldn't have had otherwise, but it also exposed me to a disparity that's just so clear when you attend school in a building that's 100 years old. It's never been renovated. The ceiling is collapsing. Like roaches and rats are your classmates. I mean, it's very obvious who is valued when then you enter a building in Dublin or Upper Arlington and it's pristine and enormous and well funded. And so I certainly have aspirations to continue to improve this city because it has great potential, but also incredible disparity. But I'm not sure exactly how I plan to go about that.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you consider it, okay? That would be great.
I appreciate that.
This is Sandy. I have a question for you. Not asking you to take this on, but what about the connection with having recruiters, military recruiters in the schools? Are you seeing a connection there, and any comments on that?
Yeah, to be honest, that's not something our campaign has like broached at all. I actually went to Fort Hayes Career Center, which did have, I went to the Theater Career Center, but there was like a military career center there. But our campaign has chosen not to comment on that. And really, I think getting CPD out of CCS, what we say is it's a huge and essential first step, but it's not the only step. But it's one of the steps we're focused on right now, because that will immediately just make 55,000 students safer and less traumatized. And so we're really focused on that at this time. Yeah. Someone asked, FOP also claims that having officers in schools is the first interaction many students have with the police. They feel this is important in terms of community relations. How do you respond to this comment? I mean, I think we know what officers in schools does. And that first acquaintance with the police, it shouldn't be hailed as anything else than what it is, which is traumatizing and harmful. The police have never been anything but a force to incite violence and murder and racism in our communities. And so why would we want students to have any acquaintance with that? And actually we've heard a lot of concerns about the other purposes that SROs serve, which is like some of them are coaches, they develop relationships with, but all of those things can happen without them being armed. So it certainly is important to have role models for our students. It's important for our students to have coaches, but that role does not need to be served by officers from a force that has consistently proven to be racist and violent.
Thank you so much, Julia. We really appreciate your time. And if anybody's interested, there was a link to the Bob's Radio Show with Julia and one of her comrades who were working on this Get the Cops Out of Schools campaign. And we're sorry that she couldn't join tonight. Was there another question for Julia? If not, I think that you had to jump off here at 8.
Yeah, I'll send our social media in the group, in the chat, and then I'll jump off.
Great, thank you so much.
Charles Traylor, are you still there?
What about?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to go there, and then Kathy Cohen Becker is going to show us some footage, but I just want.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me, Bob?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. One of the observations, that I make is that
officers in the schools, if you look at the suburban schools and the schools, they have the same philosophy that had it depends on the community. Schools, they're there to protect and serve. When they're in Columbus schools, they're there to control and occupy. And when Georgia was talking,
We're losing
can
you,
you hear me?
Charles.
You are?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, work on that mic somehow.
So, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but you can't hear me now, right?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're just kind of buzzing a little bit, but go ahead.
We can hear you, but I mean, your words are like breaking up bad.
So what happened with the police officers is that people don't realize is these police officers take steroids and they take other drugs to give them that euphoric high. And so when they come out into the community, they are coming out, loaded for bear. And they don't need to be on the streets at all. And they definitely don't need to be in our schools. I remember when they first came into schools in '93, 2 boys were in Gahanna and they shot a gun in the cafeteria. And that, I think, was the incident that ushered on the need for police officers in schools. I actually had those gentlemen on probation to me as a probation officer, and they never committed another offense after that because they were embraced by the community. But we do need to get police officers in schools. We have school safety and security officers in the schools already. And they do a pretty good job of creating a relationship with the kids. And I'm an administrator myself, and I've recovered weapons from kids. I never call the police because we handle it at the school level, and we don't want our kids to be criminalized because they make a bad decision or bad choice, and we protect the safety of everyone else. But yes, the police officers need to be out of the schools because they're only there to occupy and control and to elevate situations rather than de-escalate them.
And how can people get a hold of you or listen to you? Radio.
You can listen to me on 92.9 drum.
Well, we lost you. We lost you, Charles.
They can reach me at 92.9 FM the drum. You can go online. Go on 92. You hear me now?
You're going in and out.
Did you hear me? I don't know what's.
If you can type, Charles, if you can type into the chat.
Yeah.
Type your URL and the 92.9, but it's breaking up. We can't hear you, and it would be better to click it anyway.
So where do I?
There's a button down below that says chat. If you click the little button that has a word bubble that says chat, a white pane will pop up, and then you can type or put on your phone the URL or the phone number or the radio station. Oh, I may have lost it.
Okay, I'm looking for that. Okay, it says participants, share,
chat.
Okay, I don't see the chat button.
That's weird. Oh, is there one that says more?
Yeah.
Click more.
Okay, I got you.
Except we can hear you now, Charles.
We can hear you now.
Just so he knows where it is for later.
92.9 FM, the drum.
The drum.
I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put it in.
Yeah, glad to have you share.
What day and time is it on?
Date and time?
92.9 FM.
Yeah, what
10 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Ah, got it. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Charles. Appreciate it.
Great to see you again.
Indeed.
You're welcome.
Come up next.
Good seeing you.
All right.
Kathy Cowan Becker, are you prepared to show what you offered to show?
Sure. It won't take too long. I'm not going to show everything, but yesterday was the March for Ohio Families Killed by Police that both Paul and I attended. Paul's my husband, that if you've been to pretty much any rally, he's probably there taking pictures. And I don't make it out to as many things as he did, but I made it out to this one yesterday and took a fair amount of video. And what I didn't know about this rally, it was organized in large part by Adrienne Hood, who is the mother of Henry Green, but it was also for mothers of young Black people killed by police all over Ohio. So the co-organizer was Sabrina Johnson, who is the mother of Jamarco McShann, and they are from Dayton. And they had numerous speakers from all over the place. Joel Jones is a Dayton community activist who ran for the Ohio State House, who was endorsed by Our Revolution, spoke. Bishop Richard E. Cox, Justice for Racial Equality and Brotherhood from Dayton. He's worked with a lot of these mothers, and he kind of led the march and also spoke. Reverend Susan Smith from Columbus spoke. You've probably seen her. She's the director of Crazy Faith Ministries. State Representative Erica Crawley spoke. And they had some other speakers too, but those were the 5 that I got. So if on my Facebook page, I posted 13 videos, and anyone's welcome to go look at those there. But right now I'm going to share my screen and just show a couple of the shorter ones. I'm not going to show the whole speeches because they're between 5 and 13 minutes. So if you want to see them, go to my Facebook page and scroll down to the post that says 13 videos from this event. But I will show, I don't know if y'all can see that, but I'll show a couple of, let's go make this really big. So they had this really powerful banner. And this is just, I would just kind of did I guess a sweep shot of it. But the big names, that's Adrienne Hood's son, Henry Green, and then Jamarco McShann's son, who's Sabrina's son. The bigger names there are people from Columbus who have been killed by police, and the smaller names are people from all over Ohio. So you can see very clearly that this is a pretty major issue in Columbus and in Ohio. It's, I mean, if this many people were killed in war, I mean, it basically is war, or killed by a disease or something like that, or if it was, or by terror, you know, if they were killed by foreign nationals coming to this country and doing this, you know, there would be things done, and yet this is pretty incredible that it's this many people.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that was the amazing banner. And then I'll just play a little bit about so this is Bishop Richard Cox from Dayton.
We're not hearing his audio, Kathy. And screen, it
Kathy,
gives you the, go ahead, Train.
Yeah, so when you share, you have to unshare. So it's you again. But when
you're
you
not
click,
seeing, you're not hearing this.
right. So when you
Right.
do share, click the little buttons at the bottom that say share computer audio.
Yeah, I don't even think I have to unshare to do that.
Yeah.
So let's try. I think I just did that. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. So
That's okay. Happens to all of us.
like maybe 30 seconds of this, and then I'll show you kind of what the march itself looked like, and then that'll be it for me. And you can check out any of the rest you want on my page. Now, can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
A new day in America. New day in America. And when you start seeing black folk and white folk and brown folk and yellow folk and all kind of folks standing together like we are the scariest thing Washington, D.C. has ever seen.
So he talked for about 3 minutes, and they started the march, and we should probably show this one.
When I say Brianna, you say. 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 That's what I'm talking
they left from City Hall, went down front, uptown, and then turned the corner high and went to the State House. So that took a couple of minutes for them to go by. And so I've got speeches from Adrian Hood, Joel Jones, Bishop Richard Cox, Susan Smith, and Erica Crawley is a State House lawmaker who talked a long time. And she was in the State House until 2 a.m. the night before, dealing with the Confederate proposal that was voted down to not allow the Confederate flag to be flown at state fairs, and had to deal with basically a lot of very racist lawmakers in there. Oh, I will show one other thing. This is right outside the State House block. I haven't been down there. Which is super cool. So it's a whole Black Lives Matter mural on the sidewalk. You probably recognize about half the people standing here. So that's what I've got, unless anyone wants to see any more of this, but you can also catch it on my page.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thanks also to Paul Becker, who has been at the resource of many, many, many photos throughout this 3 weeks as things have been progressing downtown. And does anybody have any comments or questions for, oh, bye, Charles. Thank you for speaking. You have to jump off. Anybody got any comments or questions for Kathy or Paul Becker? Feel free to unmute yourself if you do. So what we were hoping at this point was to be able to bring in the People's Justice Project folks, Aramis or Tammy, and neither one of them so far has jumped into the call. But it's discussing everything that's been going on throughout these last couple of weeks. At first, the impetus of the discussion was about how to stop the police from like just brutalizing people. I mean, just literally just spraying mace and tear gas in people's faces constantly. And Bob talked to people behind the scenes at the city, and people wrote letters to him. There was, 400 complaints at least that were filed with the Columbus Police Department. So, I mean, that immediate problem seems to have been alleviated. But what I thought was interesting in some of the news reports that I noticed happening during that time is that all of the places where there was police brutality happening, that people were being maced and tear gassed all the time by police, there seemed to be this playbook of complaints that the police would say. They would say, well, the protesters were throwing things at us. They were throwing water bottles. They were throwing bricks. They were throwing fireworks at us. And it's never really been clear to me if that was exactly true, and especially with this exact thing happening all over the country at the time. And then they would use those things as an excuse to start, the loud noise banging, the shooting, the tear gassing, and all that. And somebody pointed out in one of the news stories, and I think it was on an Amy Goodman show, that it was mainly cities who had Democratic mayors that these things were happening in. And I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but
I'm a big historical theorist, and the whole notion of COINTELPRO, agent provocateurs, and Suzanne and I, in the short noir, did run across a whole pallet of bricks with no construction. And we're wondering, why in the hell is there a pallet of bricks sitting here?
And there's a lot of rumors going around on Facebook about different people doing this and that kind of seem like troll activity. So I guess Bob and I weren't down at a lot of the protests, and maybe like many of you, we're not being around large groups of people right now because of the pandemic, but just watching the videos and the live feeds and listening to people's stories, maybe a few people threw things at the police. But most of the time when there was tear gassing and spraying and shooting people, those people that they were doing that to weren't doing anything at all. And the unfortunate thing that maybe many of you have heard, maybe not, is that there was a young woman, an OSU grad, who was tear gassed. Her name's Sarah Grossman. She was tear gassed and or maced or both. Sound like a story like what happened to Jorge. However, within 2 days, she was spitting up blood and went into a seizure, was admitted to the hospital, and she died. They're not tear gassing people anymore, that I can tell. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of it since this story has come out.
And another thing, does anyone in here live in Hilliard or Gahanna? We were down the other night, and when it was getting dark, we left, but we noticed the Gahanna police cut off the downtown, came racing in with their lights on. And I'm just wondering why the taxpayers of Gahanna and their police essentially are backing the Columbus police, who were brutalizing people. So it seems like an issue that could be brought up to the city council and the mayor in Gahanna. Let them know that we don't appreciate another outside occupying army, because that, to a large extent, is what the police have become. They don't live in the neighborhood. They live in the rural contiguous counties. And now you've got Gahanna police coming in here to assist the Columbus police, as well as the Hilliard police.
Yeah, when we reported that, we had people reporting to us that they saw other police forces from other suburbs,
Newark and Hilliard,
cutting off the
particular.
downtown. I don't know how anybody experienced being stuck in the downtown when they blocked all the roads during the time of the curfew.
I haven't left. I live in Hilliard, and so I didn't realize that that was actually happening here.
Right. So the news media liked at first to focus on looters and people breaking windows, which maybe some of the protesters did that, and very little social justice in the history of the world has ever been successful without people really what they feel about things. And maybe some of the looters were just opportunists, but focusing on that instead of what the message is and what the overall problem is, which is...
And the clear problem of, look, you put police in riot gear, there's going to be a riot, and usually it's the police. But, what we've witnessed, tremendous amount of video coming into us, is people sitting there and the police coming up and spraying the hell out of them. Now,